Alright, I just want to do a quick video on one of Edward Leedskalnins' radios that he had in the 1950s. In magneticuniverse.com, in their discussion forum, back in September of 2023, Dante found an extremely rare photo of Edward Leedskalnin sitting by his radio. Unfortunately, it's not the clearest photo, being out of a newspaper and all, but this is amazing to see. We have never ever seen one of Ed's radios before. This one here appears to have two bottles, tuning plate here with the needle, and unfortunately, we just don't have the clarity to see what else is going on in there. In October, well, hold on, at the bottom of this photo, it says, for entertainment, Ed built himself a radio using soda bottles for inductor coils. He is able to pick up stations 1,000 miles away. Now, in October, I was going through the newspaper archives. This is an article that's appeared in many other newspapers, a Stone Age man. I went through the article and I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this photo here. Now we can see a much clearer photo of Ed at his radio. It's still very hard to see exactly what he's hooking up here. At the bottom of this one it says, Ed made himself this radio with soda bottles for condensers. With earphones he can pick up stations 1,000 miles distant. If we go up here and see the photos side by side, exact same photo, this one's just been cropped a little bit, and it was obviously done on a better printing press. This radio itself, I have not a clue what kind of radio it is. Is this a crystal radio? Your normal crystal radios from back then look a little like this. Ed's is a little different because, as I say, he's got two of these standing up there. It's hard to tell if he has a cat whisker with a crystal in here. I believe if he did, it might be in here. But this object here has really got me wondering too, what is this? Maybe that could be our crystal detector right there. Not sure. Comparing a lot of these radios, if you go online and you look for a bottle radio, you're going to find something like this. They've all got one bottle, coil, and they're all sitting upright. For whatever reason, Ed had his bottles upside down. So I really got looking at where Ed is sitting here. And the only spot I could figure where he was sitting would be down in the tool room. He's sitting on this bench here. There's a bench that goes around the tool room. There's a 1956 photo with a lady sitting right beside the flywheel. She's sitting on a bench here. So right away, we have a good clue of where Ed may be sitting. So what I did was I compared the walls in behind here, and I compared all the markings that we got up in here. And we've actually got a match. It's very hard to tell in this photo, but if we go to the next one, I marked out all the spots exactly where they correspond with on this wall. You see this blotch, and then it comes into these little nodes. This is that blotch there that comes into these nodes. You come down, and it matches all across. This tells us that Ed was sitting right here, basically where the lady was. So what I did was I moved over the photo, I overlaid it right onto, I overlaid this piece right over onto that piece to see where they would be sitting, and what we get is right here. Ed is sitting in the precise spot where this lady is sitting, showing the flywheel to tourists. This is the spot. It really makes one wonder if Ed was working with these both together. Was Ed somehow tuning the flywheel with this radio, or vice versa, or was the whole unit itself all tuned in? As for an antenna, we have this wire going up here that seems to go nowhere. In this photo here, without it standing at the flywheel, there is a wire coming up here. Is that wire for the antenna? It appears this is an antenna. I'm not sure what else it would be. So in this photo, it may show Ed hooking up the antenna. He could be hooking up other things too, I'm not sure. Ed's had a number of different antennas through the years. This is the one in 1950 that he had. This antenna here, assuming that's an antenna, would have hooked right into our radio over here. 1932, Ed's got this antenna here. Not sure what year this is, but it appears that we have some sort of a giant antenna type deal here. I'm not sure what year that photo's from, and same with this over here. Not sure what year this photo's from, but we can see kind of the same apparatus up there. It is said that he used the star and the moon link to get his music from the heavens. He used these for better reception. He would string his antenna across to the top of the star, and then I guess he would bring it down to the crescent. So this tower here is this tower right here at Ed's place without the wooden shack on it. And I measured on Google Earth, I estimated, we've got about 25 feet going from Ed's tower over to the star obelisk. And then I measured from the star obelisk over to around where the crescent was at Ed's place, and we have once again around 25 feet. So Ed may have been working with 50 feet of antenna at Ed's place, which is plenty, as far as I know. At Rockgate Park, I did make a measurement. And this is from the star obelisk over to around where the crescent is over here. And let's say it's around 45 feet. And then going across here would be how many feet? I'm not positive if it was at Rockgate Park when the FBI agent came and questioned him about all of his wires that he had strung up, or if it was at Ed's place. The block itself, I do believe I've matched. We got to wonder how Ed mounted his bottles onto this block of wood, and I believe he was using pegs and then also maybe a hole on the top, because it appears that this bottle is sunken in, whereas this bottle may be sitting on top of a peg. This block of wood is still there in the tool room, as far as I know, at Rockgate Park. If we go over and compare, it's this block of wood right here. Unfortunately, I can't figure out the source where I got this photo from. But this block of wood right here, I believe, has some pegs in it, or some holes for pegs. And what Ed could do is he could take these bottles off anytime that he wanted to, and he could put on different coils. It's all interchangeable. And from other photos that I've seen of this coil here, it has a peg in it. And the peg would obviously insert into the block of wood. From the show and search of, at that time, this block of wood also had this very same coil on it. It's the same coil as this coil here. Same one. Another cool thing we got here is what I believe are the bottles that we see in this old photo. This bottle right here is this bottle right here. This bottle here very much looks like this bottle here. I believe that Ed's radio was still there after he passed. I don't think he disassembled it. So we don't know if this is a crystal radio set or some sort of a tube set. In the gift shop, they have pieces of Ed's crystal radio. And here's what I believe is a crystal detector. And this crystal detector may have been mounted in here somewhere. Also, you see these wires here. We got to watch for shadows. Some of these wires could be doubled up, because we got quite a bit of shadow in here, right? So there might only be 1 or 2 wires there rather than 3. Although this wire here appears to come off and go down there. It is very hard to tell with the shadows. But with these wires here, I am thinking that this might have been for his earphone hookup. These are his earphones here, at least one set that he had. And they do got wires coming off them that look about the same thickness and everything. Not sure. Now I tried colorizing these photos. If you go to palette.fm, it's just amazing. You put in a photograph and within seconds you have a colorized photograph. I haven't paid for the site yet. I think I'm going to, though. It brings out so much other detail. Of course, sometimes some of the colors can be wrong and they might throw a person off. We can actually see a lot more around here. I noticed one day on the tool room wall this piece here, and I thought, so could this be the same tuning dial that we see here? I got in touch with a good friend and I asked them if they had any photos of this piece. They had some excellent photos. This is the back of the dial. We got some hookups there, something going on there. We have the front piece of the dial, and we have a whole bunch of hardware on the front here. Some wires coming out. And you can see this dial here doesn't necessarily match this dial here, but it's hard to tell, right? Also, we don't see the hardware there. We don't see all this stuff, but it could blend in. It could be all painted white at this point in time. Another thing that I had noticed is this variable capacitor here. Notice the shape that we got here made me think that it was glued onto something. But I was thinking, if Ed's going to go through all this trouble, because what we got here is a number of layers. We got a metal plate there, and then we got some sort of metal strips, and we've got all these in sectioned layers that are all held together with staples or wire. So as this spins, what's it going to spin? It could have hooked into something with 3 pins. See that? This could have worked all on its own. These could be nodes. Each time you turn this, they might come in contact with metal here, which then goes over to a coil. And you can set your stations that way, but I don't see this turning, and none of these turn independently of each other that I can tell. How would they? So why would Ed build this up so much? I do not know. But what I was thinking is he may have had this hooked on there. When you darken this up a bit, there is a little bit of staining. It kind of matches. And if you look at these legs can turn and stand up, just like this one here. And they're also adjustable for height. So I modeled that, I modeled this, all the size, and even with these legs, it still wasn't tall enough to reach our center point. So I put a little block of wood underneath there. So we don't have an exact match, or it's very hard to tell if we have an exact match. But it's all we have to work with. Ed had a number of different radios and a number of different generators. These are just some of the pieces that were left behind that weren't stolen or vandalized. A lot of these pieces sat outside for a long time as well. If we go off the basic diagram, here we have our antenna, ground, headphones, crystal detector, variable selector, and our coil. So could this be a crystal detector radio? We would have maybe our crystal detector over here. It could be what we have down in here. So it looks like we have some sort of hardware piece mounted right here. This may have a crystal in it, and then if we follow this over, this could be a cat whisker, and this could go to our tuning knob. Hard to see until your eyes adjust, but if you look at that, it's a possibility. But then this piece here has really got me wondering, could this be some sort of a vacuum tube? This is a vacuum tube that could be a grid leak detector. And grid leak detectors run on batteries. The radios will run on very small voltage, but you need batteries, or perhaps Ed would have used his flywheel to run this radio. Grid leak detector radio looks like this, and that's the tube. Diagram for grid leak detector. In 1950, why would Ed still be working with a crystal radio when this technology was already out for quite some time? And he probably had the know-how to make his own tubes too. And this is where the battery goes. And we have a resistor in between our antenna and ground. Then we go out to our headphones. So I tried quite a number of times to hook up this circuit, and I couldn't figure it out between the two bottles and everything. Go around back, and when I've made these pieces, there's antenna, there's our ground, grounded it, sent the antenna up, and then the antenna and the ground hook into our variable capacitor, as well as our coil off the bottle. You can see this whole piece must have spun whenever Ed moved the needle. This whole piece would spin, a variable capacitor, and why would Ed build it up so much? See all the layers? Why would Ed build all that up so much when can't you just stick a tuning needle onto here, front of this or something? Or bring that in closer to the metal plate? Maybe you need some sort of insulation in here so it doesn't mess with the signal. Was it just for receiving? Or could Ed send messages out with this, perhaps? What might these pieces be in here? Somebody would recognize it right away if they knew their radios, which I absolutely do not. This model, like I say, I don't think it's precise. Things don't exactly match up as I would like them to say, yes, this is absolute. But I think it's a good start. So what I'm hoping is that somebody will recognize this, recognize what Ed may have been doing with it. Oh, here's our hookups here for the headphones. So is this a tube radio that would have been hooked into the flywheel? Is this a crystal radio that would have been hooked into the flywheel? I believe it was hooked into the flywheel. Why would Ed have it sitting right beside his flywheel like that, right? It does make one wonder. By this time I'd had the radio figured out. He'd written stuff about the radio too. And the radio is what got him really curious. I think that's why Ed started looking into everything and doing all of his experiments, because of his fascination with the radio and what he could pick up with it. So I believe that is everything. I'm hoping I covered all. Check out this article here, Miami Herald, 1971. All he possessed still remains. A simple wooden cot surrounded by homemade art designs and several handmade radios and simple generators which he showed the children and explained to them as a simple theory of electricity. So he had several homemade radios there, and also several homemade generators. Which one of those generators was that wheel that Ed was talking about? He said he had the most efficient. Where are the children he showed the demonstrations to? Why aren't any of the children speaking out? It'd be great to hear some of their stories. Another thing I'm going to mention in here really quick. That's not the best shot. There's a broken bottle up here. I believe it's this one. If you look inside that broken bottle, It appears that has some sort of a layer in there. Whether it's cement or it's almost like he put something in the bottle to insulate it. But all the sides are covered with something, I think. Okay, well, thank you for all your time. Shout out to Dante for posting this photo. Extremely rare. I mean, it's one of the rarest photos out there of Ed. Extremely rare. And a big shout out to my friend who shared the other photos with us. So once again, if you have any idea what this radio could have been used for, what type of radio it is, leave a comment down below. Thank you for everybody's time. Have a great day. This shows that coil I was talking about with the peg in it. This coil, the peg, fit right in there.